everyone, welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose. With me today, I have the fascinating Ravinder Taylor. Ravinder, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Philippa. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to a great conversation.
Perfect, thank you. First, really easy question. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Spokane, Washington, which is about a 5-hour drive inland from Seattle.
Nice. For the non-Americans, it's Washington State, not Washington, D.C. It's on the other side of the country.
Yes. So it takes even longer to get to England, unfortunately. Makes it harder for me to get home.
Well, we're always here whenever you want to come.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You've got a really interesting background. You've done a lot of things. You're an author, you do research, you've written books, obviously. Tell me about what got you into your current kind of life of teaching, reading, growing. What inspired you to take this path?
It's been a journey. I would say there's lots of inspirational points along the way, but this is a far cry from where I started off. My background's in microbiology. I got my degree from the University of Aberystwyth in Wales. I was working in a path lab in Leicester at the Leicester Royal Infirmary, and one day there was a lecturer that came. It was actually sponsored by the hospital, so that gave it a quasi endorsement, but he was talking about hypnosis and hypnotherapy. That was something I had not taken seriously at all. I always thought hypnosis was about trying to get people on stage and make idiots out of them so everyone else can laugh, and that was it. But there were some fascinating stories that this lecturer shared, and through the process I got to learn how powerful, or rather what an untapped resource the subconscious mind is, how much information is in there, how much it can control us. And what I found really interesting was how past events, past traumas, things that we may have forgotten about, can have an ongoing effect today. So that becomes a great place. It's a great tool to look back in the past to see why I'm having particular problems today, and also how to fix it.
Do you know what? I was definitely a hypnotherapy skeptic, and then I ended up training in it, doing more neuroscience. And I love when I meet people who kind of, not that you were a skeptic, but like you say, all I'd ever seen was the stage hypnosis, which is it is full for comedy and performance, doesn't do anything. And I love, as you say, the power of the mind, but the power of the subconscious, and how you can access this. So do you, now obviously it sounds like you work with hypnotherapy now, do you do just that, or do you do a whole range of things?
No, I'm actually not practicing hypnotherapy. I did a 3-year training in hypnosis and psychotherapy. I did that at the National College of Hypnosis and Psychotherapy in England. But no, I don't actually practice anymore. I've been searching for tools and a deeper understanding. The fact is, there is research going on around the world to learn what makes us tick, why we do what we do. And who do you think uses that information the most, Philippa? Who jumps on that information?
Oh, definitely social media companies, people who want our data, anyone who wants to sell us something is what I'm guessing.
Yeah. Anyone that wants to sell us something. So it could be politicians, it could be advertisers, it could be the entertainment industry. They are going to use all of these snippets of information every way they can. My approach is to, well, let's take this information and use it for our benefit. Let's take this information so we can protect against some of the manipulation that goes on. How do we, there is a whole question about free will. Some of the greatest minds in the world will tell you that free will does not exist. What I have learned in my research is that many of our choices come from our subconscious mind. So therefore, the access point for free will is to learn how the subconscious mind works, how it intakes information, and how to program it so that it supports what we want, not what the politicians and the advertisers want us to do.
I love that. I was reading something recently about emotions versus habitual behavior. One of the things, take for example, emotional eating. We call it emotional eating. Now, it might be triggered initially by an event, which causes us to go and get out the ice cream or whatever. But what I found really interesting is from a neuroscience point of view, it's the continual behavior that becomes a habit. It stops being emotional. It starts being an ingrained template of behavior. And I don't know if you've ever heard sort of that analogy before, but the reason I bring it up was with what you're saying, it reminds me of this very thing of essentially a lot of what we're doing is at this deep, deep program level. And although we might be aware of a conscious trigger at some point in our life, at what point does it stop being conscious and start being subconscious? And that's where I think your work exploring all this is just fascinating and brings to light the opportunities we have to empower ourselves in different ways.
These things do definitely habituate. You turn off thinking. Kahneman talked about system one and system two thinking. Now, they are just models, they're not, hardwired. But the fact is, we do lots of things on automatic, and we have to. I mean, I don't want to have to think about every breath I take or every step, So we have to have that automatic thinking in place, but things do habituate. There is that expression that says neurons that fire together wire together. The more they wire together, the more habituated something becomes. So the initial cause of a behavior can be way, way in the past. You talk about the example of eating. It's really common when we are young, if we are upset, we're hurt, we've fallen over, we've got a bang knee. What does mom do? Mum gives us a kiss, kisses it better, and then brings us a treat. Maybe it is ice cream, maybe it's chocolate. So we get the association that when we're upset, when we're stressed, we need a treat. It can also go the other way as well. When we've done well and we deserve a reward, we need that treat. So then when you're trying to diet, not only do you have the habituation process, the fact that every time you're upset, you reach for chocolate cake and ice cream. Was always my passion. Um, just do that stuff automatically. So the behavior begins way back, but then it has been totally habituated. And weight loss is just one example, but you can look at lots
Mm.
of things that go on in your life when things don't work out well for you. If you continually make the same kinds of mistake, or you're continually blocked in your progress, then you want to look for self-sabotage. So when you look at the example of trying to lose weight, you have this goal that I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to watch my diet, but the old trauma, the old habits, the habituation of it all will have you reaching for the treat. And in the same way, perhaps you are the kind of person who always gets into the wrong kinds of relationships. What was there in the past that said that you didn't deserve any better? What was there in the past that taught you this is what a relationship looks like? So however much you try now as an adult, you are programmed by past experiences, and those past experiences have become habituated. One of the other things that I learned too, Philippa, people often say, what was the initial event that caused this particular kind of behavior? And what I have found, particularly with regressions in hypnotherapy, is that yes, there can be one thing that started it, but there are numerous events that reinforce it. And so
Yeah.
sometimes, you just work your way backwards under hypnosis, using regression, going back one by one. But there's not just one event that you have to change. It has been reinforced over and over again.
Definitely true. And you triggered a memory for me of my childhood where if I was sick, my parents conned me so well, right? My treat when I was sick was Lucozade, Dairy triangles, and if I was really sick, corned beef. And now as an adult, I love these three things. And I remember when I was in the army, we used to get corned beef hash in one of our ration packs. I'd be super excited and everyone else hated it. So, you can condition in all sorts of ways to like different things. But to your point about the multiple triggers, and I know if you look at neurolinguistic programming, there's a methodology, timeline therapy, which goes nicely with hypnotherapy. And it's exact thing. It's walking you back through your past to kind of see what are these events that stick out in your mind. Now, I know, the mind is amazingly malleable. Like we can change, and neuroplasticity tells us this, and all this research over the last 20 years tells us how we're not fixed. Yet people are still afraid to challenge those assumptions, to go back and look at those trigger points, even though the science says to us, okay, you can change, you can move away from this. So in your experience and in your work, what sort of do you do to help people understand the opportunity they have to do something differently?
That's what mind training is all about, Philippa. What I did was I've been exploring this stuff for 30, 35 years now. I practice all of these tools and techniques on myself. But what I wanted to do in mind training was make the evidence so clear, so basic that it's it's obvious that there are things that you can do. So I wanted to, the subtitle of mind training is the science of self-empowerment. So I draw on over 200 independent research studies in order to create the tools and techniques that are outlined in mind training. But don't get put off by the amount of science in the book. What I do in each chapter in the book, I explain the entire area, the subject matter that we're looking at. But then at the end, I will explain why it was important to learn that information. And then I provide tools and techniques to put it into practice. So you can learn something theoretically, but there isn't anything more powerful than actually putting it into practice and seeing the differences in yourself. And I also wanted to make it really easy as well. So in mind training, the tool that takes the most amount of time takes 12 minutes. That's it. The rest of them, there are numerous tools that you can combine together, do at the same time. You habituate them. So, for example, I came across this idea that putting on an artificial smile, literally putting a pencil between your teeth, will cause your brain to produce endorphins, which is one of the happy brain chemicals. It makes you feel good. And that sounded ridiculous to me when I first came across it. But I dug into it and it's absolutely true. So I learned that it's a two-way street. We tend to think I'm just the way that I am, and if I'm happy, I'll smile. But what you find is if you smile, you become happier. So one of the techniques that I will use, as I said, I will combine lots of these different tools at the same time, but especially since COVID, I took advantage of the fact that we were all washing our hands a whole lot more. So now every time I go to the bathroom, I will bring in some mindfulness. So I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. And I'm actually slowing down, which is like a precursor to hypnosis and meditation. So I will appreciate the feeling of the water running over my hands, the lather, the smoothness of it all. And then I will look up in the mirror and I will smile at myself. And then I will normally tell myself something like, you've got this. It's okay. It's all good. Life is good. It doesn't take any time. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm
Mm.
washing my hands anyway, but I add in these these different elements and the results can be incredibly powerful. There were two different research studies that I looked at that looked at smiling. And what they did was one study looked at baseball cards and the other study looked at high school photographs. And looking at the photographs, the researchers were able to predict how long the person would live. And what they discovered was when the subject in the image had a small smile, they would live on average 2 years longer. When they had the full smile, the full Duchenne smile, the kind of smile that crinkles up your eyes and gives you all those laughter lines. When you had that kind of smile, they would live on average 7 years longer. But the research goes even deeper. There was research out of Cardiff University where they were looking at Botox. And what they found was people who had Botox treatments to reduce frown lines actually became happier. But those people who had Botox to reduce the smile lines became more depressed. So this two-way street, the evidence just keeps on piling on. And so if I just go up to someone in the street and said, you want to be happier, smile, they're going to look at me like I'm an idiot. People aren't going to take it seriously. But when I provide all of the science and the research goes on and on, when it comes to positivity and optimism. There is just so much there. All of these things have really strong effects on your quality of life, your finances, your relationships, your health, just everything across the board. Yeah, tools to make you happier can be really basic, but you have to convince the people that it's actually worth doing. So, as I said, that's what mind training is all about.
No, I love that. And I love how simple it is. I also need to now go and check my university Leah book photos to see how big a smile I've got. I'm pretty certain I was smiling. I'm generally a happy person, but now I need to know. Um, I'm from the Northeast originally, though you can't tell from my accent. And I always think the Northeast is super friendly, super open in comparison to the South. And I do have this game that I play on the London Underground. I actually don't live in London, I live on the border of Wales, but I smile at people on the Underground. And only sometimes, because obviously you can get arrested for being too friendly in London. But it, normally people just smile back. They kind of look at you shocked and then just like go, and it's a reciprocated thing, and I love the simplicity of it, and it's smiling, and it's really, I don't get why you wouldn't want to smile. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you feel good when you do it, but I think it's understanding the fact that actually for your own mental well-being, more smiling will benefit you. It's
And
something that people just don't realize.
that's it, and you're correct. On the underground, on the tube, people almost always keep themselves to themselves. They always look grumpy. So you can add in the whole spiritual element to this as well, Philippa. Smiling is infectious. You smile
Yeah,
at someone, you make them feel better. They feel that someone cares, even if it's just to a small degree. They get to see something brighter. People are more attractive when they're smiling. So when you smile at someone, they smile back at you, and then you get even more warm feelings. So I'm a great believer in be the change that you want to see in the world.
I love
Just
that. I
go
agree.
out and do it. And compliments is something else as well. I don't know what it's like in England now. I think when I was younger, that could be looked upon as a bit weird when a stranger compliments you. Happens a lot in America, but think about it. When a random person compliments you, doesn't that make you feel good?
Oh
Oh, I
yeah.
like your
I
dress. Oh, your hair is beautiful. These things they, these things make a difference.
And I actually, again, think I sound like a weirdo now. I do it to people I don't know a lot more, because I'll see someone, like I said, I'll see someone in a dress I think is lovely, and I'm like, that's a lovely dress. And I almost go out my way to do it, because it actually brings me joy just doing. Because also I know when I get a compliment, and it's not that I want, it's not a give and take thing, but I know how good I feel. Yeah, it's a very simple thing to do. So I don't know if it's standard practice. Again, I'm obviously biased. In the Northeast, I'm sure it is. But actually, I think it's just giving a little bit of love. And it doesn't cost you anything, but actually, it could really make a difference in someone's day. It's important we remember that.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Be the change, spread the joy and the happiness, and it will come back. As you said, you don't do it in order to get it back, but that is just part of the process. And it's great and it
Absolutely.
feels good. It feels good to compliment somebody else. It feels good to see their face suddenly light up. Perhaps they were having a really bad day, perhaps they were really depressed and you've managed to boost them, give them a boost, and then it feels good.
I think what interests me about people in the world, and I'm sure with you, both studying the brain and humans and how we do what we don't actually take a lot to shift our feelings, our emotions. A simple thing is from sitting down to standing up, you're shifting your energy. You can already get a boost that way. And I think particularly when you're in a dark place, it can feel like it's just too much. And that's why I think, the small examples that you give in your book of just do, the maximum is 12 minutes. Well, actually, a lot of these things are 30 seconds, really, aren't they? In smiling, I like to do mindfulness pouring a cup of tea. You boil the kettle, smell the aroma of the tea leaves, whatever it is. But these are all things we can do really easily. And like anything, compound interest on behavior. You start small, you repeat it, that becomes your new habit. And suddenly, in not long period of time, you can really shift where you are. With your book, or with the work you do in general, have you got a sort of a mission in terms of how many people you want to reach, or anything else you want to do to affect this change?
I take life one day at a time, Philippa, one step at a time. We've always said, my husband and I, we have this business together. And we've always said, if it helps one person, we've done our job. So I do. I take it one person at a time, one day at a time. Yes, there is a great deal here. Mind training began based on a blog that my husband wrote. Now, as I said, we've been in this field for 35 plus years now. And so he wrote a blog talking about mind training. And to him, it was really, really obvious. And because it's so obvious to him, he doesn't necessarily go through all the different steps. So when he did this blog, everyone was really interested and they said he should write a book on it. So he's the one that wrote the outline for for mind training. But then I pointed out to him, he doesn't go systematically 1 through 10. He will go 1, 4, 10. Because
Yeah.
it is so obvious to him. So I slowed down the whole pace. I went through it all systematically, and with my own background in science, I wanted to verify everything. It wasn't enough for me to say, well, I've used the techniques on myself and they work, so therefore it must be good, because that isn't science. I wanted something
Hmm.
that was going to help the maximum number of people. So, did the research, I found the science, and then I went for verification of the science. And maybe I took it 3 degrees down. I just kept on trying to verify, trying to get other information that would collaborate the first, would actually complement it, actually build up on it. And that's why there are so many tools and techniques that you can do simultaneously. I mean, isn't all self-help about just feeling happier?
Mm.
We don't want to lose weight just based on a particular number on the scale. We want to feel good about ourselves. So it's not the weight that matters, it's our perception of ourselves. We don't just want to make lots of money so that we have a big bank account. We want the security, we want to feel safe, but it all comes down to feeling happier. So that underlies everything in the work that we do. Is what does it take to make you feel happier? What does it take to help you like yourself? Do we have anything in this world if we don't like ourselves? How many people actually stop and think, do I like myself? Am I a good person? What does it mean to be a good person? But to
What does it
me,
mean
that is the journey of life. That's about constantly exploring this, constantly seeing how high is up.
I agree. And do you have a view in your own mind of what it means for you to be a good person?
That's something I have given a great deal of thought to. And this is one of the things that I can go on and on about. See, one of the things I cover in mind training is positive affirmations and why they are good, but only to a degree, or rather, they are good, but they're only effective to a degree. Because, take the classic example, I am good. What does my inner voice automatically start chatting back? Good.
No, you're
Good at
not.
what? What does
Yeah.
good mean? Just because society says something is good, is that really the case? You can go for the classic examples like black slavery. There was a time in America, lots of people had slaves and they thought they were good people. When I was younger, it's hard to think about, but when I was younger, like in junior school, so between ages of 6 and 11, it was really common for there to be anti-gay jokes. It was so
Mm.
common. It was in the playground. Everybody said it, everybody. Today, we know that's awful. You think about the number of people who talk about coming out of the closet, the number of people who had to hide who they were just because society deemed something was wrong. I'm a huge Barry Manilow fan. I've liked Barry Manilow since I was 17 and I watched a special on TV when he was at the Royal Albert Hall. I went to see him in Las Vegas when I turned 50. He was in concert. And that was when he officially came out. And it really bothered me. I mean, it kind of hurts me that someone that I've admired, love his music. I like his geekiness. I like the fact that he's not, the hunkiest guy out there. I liked his normalcy and the fact that he had to hide this side of him, even though he was so famous, so popular.
Mm.
So today I'm constantly questioning what is good. What else am I missing out there? If I could crack jokes when I was 8 years old that I would never, talk about today, I wouldn't, these things just don't matter, but society had deemed it normal. In fact, you were weird if you weren't cracking those jokes. I mean, it's really sad. So what is there that we're missing today? That's what I think. So I'm constantly trying to define what is good, what is important to me, and how can I become better? It's the journey, but you have to learn about yourself. You have to question yourself, and you have to choose the kind of person that you want to be. And most people aren't aware of that. Most people will say, I am who I am. This is it. This is how God made me. This is how my environment made me. This is how my genes made me. But no, there is so much that you can change. First of all, you have to believe that change is possible.
So true. And I was reflecting, as you said, on, so my first degree was in history, love history. And when you look at human behavior through the ages, and you see these patterns forming, and each time what we like to do is find a group of people who are other from us and make their lives a misery. And that depends on where in the world you are and who you are, whatever. And then each time you see us kind of going, oh, wait a second, that's probably a bad thing. Maybe we should stop doing that. And my question always is, when do we learn to stop doing that? Because we're doing, we still do it again today. And I know in the US there's some interesting times going on, but also, there's interesting times in all countries. In fairness, there's no one perfect nation who all do good. And with my history head, I kind of go, but look at these patterns. They don't serve anybody, or if they do, it's for a short, limited period of time, and those empires crumble. These leaders ultimately die one way or another. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if we just went, hey, you're cool, I'm cool, let's all just be happy and let's focus on being good, being the change. And I know there's no answer to that, but I think the work that you do around finding that self, starting with a realization of, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be, is a really important step to that. That's, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that self-actualization where we understand we have all we need. We don't need to worry about anybody else. And as a result, we can be better people for ourselves. It's a struggle.
To struggle so much. You're right. I mean, it's not the easiest thing, but it is the journey of life. It's about learning more and growing more, accepting more, choosing the person that we want to be, and then choosing even higher goals for ourselves. How can we become better people? How can we make the world a better place? And it's not necessarily about making the big changes in the world. It's those small things. It's the people around you. It's how you can reach people one person at a time, a smile here, a compliment there, and understanding other. That becomes a huge thing, especially today. You're right, the world is interesting. America's politics are interesting, but you've got some of these patterns going on through Europe as well. They're going on around the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There are just some awful things going on, and we have to speak up about it, and we have to make sure that we don't perpetuate those things. So when you see someone that is different, don't be nice to them. You might discover they're not as different as you think. They
Mm.
may have a different language, a different accent, but they love their children. To quote Sting, they love their children still. So yes, I mean, family, that's what binds us together. Our relationships that we have, the things that we value, our families, our friends, our communities. Well, everybody else has those same values. Yes, there are crazy characters in the world, but I believe they are definitely in the minority. For the rest of us, it's just a case of familiarity and being nervous of differences. So I would say go embrace them. You're going to learn more things, and you're going to find out that you have more things in common. A big problem, as you talked about the politics in America, but the divisions around the world between left and right ideas, they're absolutely crazy. On the one side, you'll get people saying, oh, they're just a load of snowflakes. They're just, this woke agenda is crazy. And they will go on. Whereas the other side, they're going to say, oh, they're all racist. They're all judgmental. Neither of them are. You have to stop that. The fact is, we want the same things. We just have different ways that we think those goals could be reached, different techniques. And the more we can about them, talk about what really matters, and then work together to find solutions to reach those goals. Stop judging. That's what I would say. Stop judging, start listening, and start actually hearing the concerns of the other people. Their concerns are valid, they matter, and you will discover that they're the same concerns you have too.
100%. And I always think that The moment we can't have dialogue with someone who has a different opinion from us, like, we've already failed. But also recognizing when you go back to, like, I just go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We all want warmth and food and shelter and comfort, and in the 21st century Wi-Fi. But we want the same things. How we want to get those things might differ. But does that mean it's wrong or not? And I also think when you go far enough to either end of the spectrum, left or right, you kind of haven't seen the same behaviors, just in a slightly different interpretation. And it's very sad, like you say, when you don't get that dialogue, you don't get the listening, and it happens around the world. You're right, and I find it interesting with America. I think America we are aware of, because we get so much of the news from over there, and because also we held it up to a standard. But let's be honest, as you said, no country is perfect. It happens all the way around the world. It's just in this particular case, it's a shift from what we expect. It is the way it is, but there are plenty of other countries that behave worse to its citizens, or currently worse to its citizens. Let's hope people do as you say, listen, yeah, and reconsider, and find. And also, I think when you are, sometimes I think with the tribalism, the otherness, it's because you're trying to deflect from your own problems as well. You're trying to find a cause that you can say, all this stuff that's happening to me, it's not my fault. It's that thing over there. And that goes back to why the work you do around looking internally, understanding yourself, and having that acceptance that actually, what can I control? And a certain lot of how we behave, we can control. That's the only thing we can control, really. But it's understanding that.
It is. And then you've brought up this whole other issue of self-responsibility. When circumstances are somebody else's fault or another country's fault, they did this, or when you're blaming somebody else, when your problems are due to external forces, there's nothing you can do about it. But when you realize that you are part of the equation, it's an experiment that is well worth trying, regardless of what is going on in your life. Think, how am I contributing to this? When you take responsibility and say, I am part of this equation, then it opens up doors of opportunities. And self-responsibility is something that I go into in great depth. To me, it was that attitude that helped me cure myself of rheumatoid arthritis. I was diagnosed with RA after my second son was born. It was a horrible, difficult time for me. He was 3 months old. I was having problems changing his diaper because I couldn't hold his legs up with my left hand because my shoulder didn't work. So I couldn't slip a diaper underneath. And it's like, how am I going to take care of him as he gets even older? But I looked at the self-responsibility. This is something that you only do for yourself. This is not a way for you to judge somebody else. It's only for you to say, okay, what am I gaining out of this? And I did a great deal of introspective work to say, why did I bring this on myself? What am I gaining out of it? What are the benefits? And there are benefits. When you're sick, you don't have to go to work. You get handed. Somebody else takes care of you. You can lay on the sofa and watch TV. There are benefits. It can be really difficult to acknowledge that, but they happen. So for me, I went through that whole process. And then talking about how the subconscious mind is programmed, we are aware of the placebo effect. So we know that the mind has the ability to heal you and to hurt you. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to reinforce the idea that I could heal myself, that my mind could heal me. So earlier we're talking about affirmations, and I can tell myself I feel good, I'm healthy and strong, but when my joints aren't working, when I can't pick up my son, it's not gonna cut it. So one of the things I did, one of the tools that we offer in the company that I have is the Inner Talk Subliminal Self-Help Programs. Now, subliminal self-help programs have had a bit of a bad rap, but you think about it. Most people will say subliminals don't work, they're being used against us anyway, and they're dangerous. Now stop and think of those three statements. They can't make sense. If they don't work, why are they being used? They're used in politics, they're used in advertising, they're used in the media. When people have tried to bring out laws to actually create laws to have subliminals only used with informed consent, it's been knocked down. It's been buried. It's been, it's big money that will come and fight against such laws. So you just look at that and you say, oh no, there has to be something more to it. And again, I go through the whole story of why subliminals have got such a strange reputation out there. But there's nothing weird about subliminal communication. Give you two examples. Have you ever been out in a store, say, and you start humming a song to yourself only to realize that same song is playing on the music system in the background? You just
Of course.
automatically start repeating it to yourself. And then the other example is, imagine yourself at a party, some event, lots of conversations going on all around you. Then someone across the room says your name and your ears prick up. You were oblivious to that conversation, but your subconscious mind was picking it up. So, what the Inner Talk subliminal self help programs do, the affirmations are presented beneath conscious awareness or right at that level of conscious awareness. On our programs, you can be aware that there's talking going on in the background. You just can't necessarily make out what the words are. Now, this technology is the only such technology. It's a patented technology, but it's the only such technology that has been researched by numerous independent universities and institutions and been demonstrated effective at priming how you talk to yourself. So just like being in that grocery store where you start to hum that song to yourself, well, when you have a correctly created subliminal program, you're not aware of the affirmations on there, but you start repeating it to yourself. So on a bad day, we talk to ourselves constantly, Philippa. On a bad day, we're going to be saying things like, oh, I hate my life. I'm fed up with this. Everyone hates me. My life sucks. And you feel down. But if that self-talk were to change and you were to say, I'm happy. I can do this. People like me. It's a beautiful day. You can't be depressed at the same time. So what I did with my RA is we have an Inner Talk subliminal program, Accelerated Healing and Wellbeing. I played that program all night, every night. I just wanted to really get into my subconscious mind, the deep inner belief. It's not a surface belief, which is what positive affirmations can be like. That's on the surface. I wanted it to go deep within me, that subconscious programming. I wanted to reinforce that idea. So that was what I did. And then 15 months into my RA, I came across a supplement, CMO. You can buy CMO on Amazon today. But at the time, Dr. Sands, who had discovered it, was just doing the research on it. And there were some excellent results. So I tried it because I didn't want things that just helped my RA. That wasn't part of my self-identity. Having RA, I'm not a sick person. I refuse to be that person. I wanted it cured. I wanted it gone. And it is gone. I haven't taken any RA meds for 26 years now. So it
Wow.
was totally gone. But I took this supplement. I took 2 tablets twice a day for 2 weeks. And basically the RA was gone. Now, was it the supplement that cured me? Well, if it was such an effective cure, everybody would, RA wouldn't be a problem anymore. But that isn't the case. I think for me, I did the inner work. I really took responsibility for my own sickness. I programmed my subconscious mind with the idea that my mind could heal me. And I'm aware there's lots of stories you can hear. There are stories out there where other people have cured themselves of different things. So that ability definitely exists within us. And then I think I needed the CMO. The CMO would have some effect. I know someone who is taking CMO right now for arthritis, and they're just on it permanently. And they can
Mm.
tell when they come off of it. So it does do something. I think in my instance, that something was enough to push me over and effect a total cure. The
Amazing. I
mind
mean,
is
I've got a very
powerful, Philippa.
it totally is a really good example for you of a friend of mine. She is a marathon runner. Last summer, she lost the ability to walk out of nowhere. She got pins and needles in her legs, but she had a marathon in September. This was so start of end of July, August. She couldn't walk, and running is such a big part of her life. By the time she got to September, she had forced herself. She'd rewind her brain and got through whatever it was. No, it turned out she has MS, and that was the first sign of it. But since that point, and she's now seen the specialist, and thankfully she hasn't relapsed. And so, although the lesions are there, which occurred last summer. And with her, I'd say it's just sheer will of force. Like, running is so important to her. There was no way she wasn't going to run. And since she's had her MS diagnosis, she's run ultra marathons, she's run all sorts of things. And she just did one at the weekend where she came like top in the over 40 women's and 10th overall or something ridiculous like that with MS. And again, it's not everybody. I'm not saying that we can just, but I think there's something about in that internal dialogue that you have, that sheer will of force, but also having the reasons to overcome it can help as well. But it can happen, as you said, in your case, in her case, in some cases. I've talked to people who've had cancer who have managed to get through it without using radiotherapy or chemotherapy. Again, this isn't necessarily everybody, and there is science that has to be followed up on, but the power of the brain, I think, is just cannot be underestimated in these situations.
Exactly. And it's not only about affecting cures. The fact is, Philippa, we are all going to die. I think I can say that absolutely 100%. We're all going to die. What we want to do is maximize the experience in between. So there are some people who have a cardiac issue and then they become afraid to move. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're not going to get up off the sofa. Their well-being, their health just deteriorates in all of these other areas as well. And there are other people have triple bypass surgery. My husband actually is an example of this. He had triple bypass surgery in '07. It was after that I decided I wanted to take up running. So he was going to come run with me. So after his bypass, neither of us had run in decades, but we did the training. We did the basic. We started off slow. We did it correctly, and we did a 10K and a 12K together. Then I went on and did a marathon. He was doing it to keep me company more than anything else. But yes, there isn't. I mean, that is so you can have two people having bypass surgery, and one, their life is over, and the other, they've got a lot of living left to do. And my husband has done so much in that time. You know, he went on to become a New York Times bestselling author. He's written 20 books. He's got all of these, all since his triple bypass surgery. So you can choose your life. It's not, he has a heart condition, but that doesn't stop him from living. And that's what all of mind training is about. It's not about defeating death. You know, we are all going to get older. But are you going to be the kind of person who is old by the time you're 50? Or are you the person who is still young and vital, and not young literally, but comparatively doing all the same things when you're in your 80s and 90s? What kind of old person do you want to be? Choose the person that you want to be.
I'm basing my grandmother. She died at 93, was an Irish redhead lady. And in her last years, I think she just drank gin and ate cake and didn't care. And I respect that very much. So that's what I'm going for.
Yeah. But live life to the full. Enjoy every moment of it. Be the best version of yourself possible. Be the change that you want to see in the world. That's the journey. That is the journey. And it's just one step at a time and constantly stretching yourself to become the person that you want to be.
Absolutely. Ravinder, it's been wonderful talking to you. How can people find you if they want to follow up and learn about your book and anything else about you?
You can visit my website. That is just ravindertaylor.com. Mind training, the science of self-empowerment, is available everywhere. You can buy it at your local bookstores. If they don't have it in stock, they can order it in. You can again buy it online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, just wherever. I really enjoy interacting with people. So if you can friend me on Facebook or Instagram as well. I learned from all of these interactions. So I'm constantly refining the tools and techniques that I have in my little cache here. So, and I learn those things from communicating with people, from discovering what their real issues are. And then that inspires me to do even more and become even better. So yes, definitely do reach out to me. If you read Mind Training, I'd love to hear your experiences on it with it.
Amazing. Please do, everybody. Ravinder, thank you so much again. I wish all your endeavours well and look forward to following you as you continue your journey.
Thanks, Philippa. Very much enjoyed speaking with you.